Hey guys, it's Nick, your friendly neighborhood podcaster. So during my setup, I didn't realize that it wasn't my real mic that was live, but my crappy little webcam instead. I apologize for any quality issues and having to make Tim work overtime to not make it sound like I recorded it in a tin can. Despite all this, we hope you still enjoy the episode as we discuss beat-em-ups this week. By the way, want to enter in our first giveaway? Be sure to listen extra close. And now, here's Screen Refresh.
Oh, did you guys clap?
I snapped my finger.
Yeah, I clapped.
Oh, it must have done exact same time because I didn't hear anything.
I think that was
for
the
syncing?
perfect sync.
Yeah.
If we were in like Pacific Rim, we'd be set. You guys remember when you had to sync up?
Jagger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Welcome to Rule of Thirds, an offshoot of our Screen Refresh podcast. Our goal every episode is to take a little break from watching and analyzing movies, to dive headfirst into some nostalgia, or just get a little creative. So every month we select a different topic and create a top 3 list that may or may not be near and dear to each of our hearts. Shoot us a message on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Screen Refresh, or send an email to screenrefresh@gmail.com to let us know what your top 3 are, or just suggest future topics. I'm your host, Tim, and I'm joined by my hosts, Nick and Dean.
Hello there.
That's me, the Dean guy.
This week, we're breaking down the beat-em-up games that have been living rent-free in our heads since childhood, so let's kick it off.
Oh, shit, I'm not ready.
All
That was
right,
quick.
Dean, you go last.
Wait, so you're not ready to give your list, or you mean like you're not...
It was just, we're getting right into it. It's like,
Do you want a preamble?
Warm up a little? Yeah.
I mean, do we...
Warm up
how about
some-
the big thing
How was
is...
your week?
No, none of that.
Just
I don't care about your week. I don't want to hear your stories.
the listeners have written in, like, stop talking about yourself.
I think
More
I have a
games,
beat 'em up
please.
for every 10 years of my life.
Well, like we're talking about it, so I guess if you just Google beat 'em up games, we were traditionally thinking the side-scrolling classic, like guys walk in from either side of the screen, you move up and down, left and right, and you just kind of like punch them and throw them around.
Yeah, that's what a beat 'em up is.
Yeah, but I guess like if you search it for the list of beat 'em ups, it'll include other things that they're like, oh, Dynasty Warriors is a form of beat 'em up. Devil May Cry is a hack and slash that's a form of beat 'em ups because it's a subgenre.
Tim, I
don't
think you're.
feel like that's-
I think you're Googling with bias, because if I do top 25 beat 'em up, if I can type it right, because the V is not in that word. Top 25 beat 'em up. You got Gauntlet, River City Ransom, Knights of the Round Table, D&D Shadows over Mystaria. Never heard of it. Batman Returns. Like those are beat 'em ups. Not to.
I think those, from what I was seeing, I saw that same kind of list, Tim. And I think it's like when you say Zombieland, it's an action horror comedy. Like they're adding beat 'em up to a long list of genres.
Yeah, and plus then they try to break it down into all these like little subgenres and things like that. So yeah, like if you literally go to like the beat 'em up games Wikipedia or something, which Wikipedia, but so if you go to the beat 'em up games Wikipedia, then you get into a section talking about like late 1990s and the 2000s, and they even say the Dynasty Warriors series in 2000 offered traditional beat 'em up action on a 3D battlefield. They talk about how in 2000 the beat 'em up saw a revival in the form of 3D hack and slash games, Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, God of War, and Bayonetta. So all of that stuff, I would never put like Final Fight in the same ring as like Devil May Cry in terms of, oh yeah, these are the same exact style of game.
Those were my Wikipedia edits, by the way.
Oh, okay, good. Just to throw everything off for me. So
I think it's because it's like the roots are in beat 'em up. Like that's the root of those games, but those are an evolution, and I would call those like third person like action adventure because there's so much more. Yes, you're running through levels, you're beating people up, but God of War, for instance, there's kind of RPG elements where you're gaining abilities, gaining stats, etc., where it transcends beat 'em up and it is something completely different. But I think it draws its roots there. So you're like, yeah, this is a beat 'em up, but now there's a lot more layers now. I would say Dynasty Warriors is more of a beat 'em up / hack and slash than those other ones. But
I would argue.
I don't think you really level in Dynasty Warriors. You just choose your character and start to kick ass.
Well, my thoughts on the entire thing is really just strictly like the classic arcade style,
the roots,
or the exact roots of it. The modern ones, I mean, I'll contest, but I mean, think like you can't make a modern day beat 'em up anymore because it's the formula is so old. It gets boring, you know. Like, why play this when I could play all the other ones that already kind of cemented itself in history? And
I mean, unless they're doing one specifically in that vein for the nostalgia purposes. Like, I know after Scott Pilgrim came out, they released the Scott Pilgrim side-scroller beat-em-up game that ended up being fun, or things that aren't necessarily not traditionally a side-scroller beat-em-up, but stuff like Guacamelee, which I would put Guacamelee more in terms of like I don't know, I find that closer to something like Dead Cells than I do to like Streets of Rage.
I've never heard of Guacamelee.
Google it. Guacamelee, it's fun.
I will check that out.
So it'll go hand in hand with your the Lucha Underground discussion. So yeah, I mean, I think so for the purposes of our episode, when we talk beat 'em up games, it's going to be traditionally, I think, the expectation of the side scroller, like you can move into the foreground, background, that kind of beat 'em up game. And not any of these other.
To be quite honest, I don't think we're going to get much argument when it comes to our decision on that.
I mean, just send us an email. Argue with us. Don't argue with us.
I don't think
let us know we're not screaming into the void.
I just think there's really not much like room for like, why are you guys picking these games like that? Why is it room for contention on it? I don't see the big deal on this subject matter.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be one of the least contested ones. It's not exactly like best SNES games or things like that. It's
I think you're overthinking it.
Have you met me? Because otherwise, if we just go with anything that you walk around, you hit it with fists, it's now a beat 'em up game. Like, I grew up with an older brother. Am I a beat 'em up game? I don't know. So we're gonna take a look at anything that's more side scroller based. And just kind of see where we stand. And I'll just continue stalling until Dean feels comfortable with his list. So, Dean, do you feel ready now with that preamble?
I need about 25 more minutes. Can you fill this time?
So, West Haven Pizza.
Damn, I just started keto again, and I would really love some West Haven pizza. Any pizza for that matter, but just back to your point, just on modern beat 'em ups, they did release. I have not played, but I've watched some videos. Streets of Rage 4, which actually looks pretty badass. I know some of my friends that are into beat 'em ups rave about it. It looks pretty cool. I definitely want to pick it up. I think you could probably, in this day and age, play multiplayer. So we should jump into that sometime.
Yeah, I would be down. I know. I remember seeing when it came out, but I never really followed up on it. But it looked pretty good.
Yeah, it seems like a fun modern version of it. I mean, it's 2D, it's side scrolling, the same concept, but like really nice artwork, and obviously the animation is going to be a lot better in today's age.
I've never actually played any of them.
Oh wow! I will say the number 3 game on my list is not. Oh, we'll get to it. I'm not going to.
Is not a game.
I don't want any.
As a youth, Dean would just roam the streets, beating up people and eating the occasional apple that's found on the ground.
Find out what the number 3 is. Number 2 will shock you.
I carried a camera with me, and I'm
listeners hate him for this one reason.
That he punches them in the face.
So Streets of Rage 4, it is up to 4 players, and it is available on PC.
Oh, that's awesome. We're going to hold a contest right now for the 4th player. The winning person gets a copy of the game and the right to play with us.
Actually, I will go with that. The first person to actually shoot us an email or shoot us a tweet saying you're down to throw down in Streets of Rage 4, I will send you a copy of the game.
I'll chip in.
I will.
So, who wants to start off with our number 3 game here?
So, Tim, do you have any Battletoads?
I have no Battletoads. Do you have Battletoads?
Is that something we should have? Because I don't.
That was a meme back in the day. Making me feel out of place.
Thank you for calling GameStop.
If you could search for a game for me.
Yeah.
The name's Battletoads. Do you have it in stock?
Battletoads?
Yeah.
The old one?
Battletoads is number 1 on my list.
I'm furiously typing in knowyourmeme.com.
Battletoads.
Did
One
you
of
play
the
it on...
Easiest games of all time.
Yeah, I had
Was
it
that on SNES
No,
or
that
Sega?
that was neither. That was Nintendo.
Oh.
Yeah. That was probably one of the hardest games I've ever played. And then when Rare made their replay compilation on Xbox One, that was one of the games you can play, and it had a reverse feature like on a lot of modern emulators where you can kind of like rewind back to a save state. I remember trying to get through the motorcycle thing where you have to jump over the stuff, and I must have died like 100 times in the span of like a 5-second period. Because it's just like you go 2 frames forward and then you die, then you revert back, and then it's just the constant trying to jump over because you need like Jedi-like reflexes to play that game. It's so infuriating on how difficult it is. I've never played a game that difficult.
Yeah, even with like the big arrows like pointing up and down, it's like it's split second.
Yeah.
It's like you almost like just have to guess.
You would need it actually memorized for the entire path of the entire level. There's no way you can do it without it. And even
you played Aladdin. Never mind.
I was just about to say, I remember I never owned Battletoads. We rented it around the same time that we rented Aladdin. And so the 2 games I had to play for like a week at my house was Battletoads and Aladdin, and I could not get past either of them. And it was a miserable experience to sit there with like, oh, I not only 1 game, they let me rent 2 games, and I can't play either of them.
The Angry Video Game Nerd like really did a great review on it, because the first level is super fun. It's completely like a bait and switch, because like, oh, this is really cool. You know, when you do the punch, you know, your fist grows super large, and then when you do a kick, you know, your foot becomes a massive boot. Or like when you charge a guy.
Right, I remember that now.
Yeah, you charge a guy, you get horns growing on your head to like emulate that you're doing a charge, and then you get like these cool weapons you can pick up along the ground to like beat up whoever you're coming across. And then you get down to the second level and you're going down the thing and you're like rappelling down. And when you're in multiplayer, that's when you realized on how much of a shit show you're about to experience, because there is no friendly fire, or like I get the term mixed up, but like friendly fire is on. So anything you do can kill your other guy, and with shared lives, forget it. So I never got to play it with multiple people, being the only child that I was. But even going solo on it was just... I would always get to that tunnel, you get on the bike, and then you start, and like the first quarter of it is easy enough, but then like later on it gets just a lightning fast area, and that's when I never got past it. And when I learned there's like 3 more of that same level, like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore.
Am I a joke
Finally
to you?
beat 1. I don't remember anything past that level. Like, I think I just probably died there so much. But it was so satisfying to kick and punch people with your limbs turn huge and they just fly off the screen, kind of like a... Cut this out. What the fuck is that?
No, I'm leaving it in. Leave all my shit in. I'm going to leave this in for you.
Super Smash Brothers, when somebody has a high percentage and you just
yeah.
graze them and they
just
fly
walk
out
them
the
into
screen. Yeah, it's very satisfying fighting enemies in Battletoads.
And that pause music, dude. Like, that pause music is by far the best music of my childhood.
Oh, I don't remember it. I'm gonna take a trip down memory lane with your guys' games too. Once we get done with this episode.
Yeah.
So
Place that in. You're gonna get that's like pure. That shit slaps for a good 30 seconds until it loops. Because that's how games work back then.
Right.
So when they did because I thought more recently in the past several years, they either did a remake or they did like a late sequel deal. Because I remember them having like a 3D version or something of Battletoads on like Xbox One or Xbox 360 or something like that. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh.
I don't remember that.
It never left my childhood. Like, I didn't care enough to. This shit was hard. That was like a badge of honor growing up, and then like becoming an adult. Like, nope, I went through that battle. I'm not going back. PTSD, man.
Yeah, I feel like my tolerance for overly difficult games has lowered over the years, only because now it's an option of like, yeah, I can buy another game on Steam, or I can go play any one of my other things I have in my backlog. I don't need to sit here and bang my head against a keyboard for the next, 16 days.
The SNES, or not SNES, but like the original Nintendo titles are just insanely difficult. It was just coming from that period of time where, they were supposed to be, money sinkers, or just, they just eat up your quarters, and they just ramp up difficulty to make sure that you're not able to continue on. You gotta just put in more and more quarters. And being in the home market, you don't need to do that anymore, but the game difficulty was still there. So trying to go back to a lot of my childhood games, I just don't care enough to do it. I'll get that whim of I'm going to play, the original Mario. Even that shit's fucking hard. Going back to it now. I don't have the reflexes I used to anymore, the hand-eye coordination to keep up with just the A and B slot. I can do all this intricate crap on Xbox and PlayStation, but when it comes to original Nintendo, I can't do it anymore. Fucking insane.
So, Dean, your number 3 beat-em-up game of all time.
Number 3 beat-em-up game of all time. So, you know how at the top you were like, beat-em-ups are only 2D side-scrollers?
I think this specifically prefaced that just so you seem like an asshole when you cover yours.
But it's not what you think, and I think you would be hard-pressed to argue this choice, if you even know what this game is. On the PlayStation 1, there's a game called Fighting Force.
No rules. No ring. No exit. And no place to hide. Take a fight outside. Fighting Force, Eidos Interactive.
Do you recall this game?
I do not.
Did you play this game? Okay.
I didn't have a PlayStation.
So fighting? Oh.
I had a PS2.
Where did you go from SNES right to PS2?
We had Atari and PC, then we went to SNES, then we went from SNES to, I think, N64.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
N64 to PS2.
Right. Gotcha. That makes sense. In any case, Nick, did you ever play Fighting Force?
No, but I've seen the cover a lot.
Yeah, this is one of these games that just I think I rented from Blockbuster several times. I don't know if or did I own it? I don't remember.
Oh.
But I know I played it a lot. Fighting Force is I think kind of looked at as the first, or maybe one of the first 3D beat 'em up games. And it's really a beat 'em up in the sense of the term because it's just fist fighting. It's like the game was developed actually as Streets of Rage 4 or like a new Streets of Rage game. I don't know the story behind why they dropped the IP and just made it an original game, but that's what it was developed as, Streets of Rage 4, obviously a classic beat 'em up fighting game. And it really is just taking the 2D left to right and just giving you kind of 3D linear game, but it's just the same style, like, or same, I guess, basic gameplay. Copy paste. People come at you and you just kick their asses and use weapons, pick up bottles. There are guns in this game, but you have to knock them out of their hands and then pick them up. And then they run out of ammo after like 2 shots. And then you can throw the gun at them.
Oh, I like that.
The game itself is kind of, it was the first foray into this. And I think I put it on here because it was one of my most memorable beat 'em up experiences, it being the first like 3D one that I ever played. It's kind of clunky and slow, like, they're still figuring out, I guess, this 3D space of the PlayStation. It came out in 97. I think PlayStation had been out for 2 years or so at that point. It's developed by Eidos, who was more known for Tomb Raider, and later like Hitman, and I think they published
Deus Ex.
Final Fantasy VII too. What's that?
I think they did Deus Ex also.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. They're a publisher. I don't know what the difference between publishing and developing is, like why there's.
I think it's they didn't directly make the game. They're just the ones who are like
Quentin Tarantino
handling
presents.
the putting it out on shelves and all the back end.
Yeah, so they're a game publisher. They publish some big, more well-known PlayStation games at the time. But it's the Streets of Rage formula. There's 4 characters to choose from. There's Axel, Hawk, who is like Axel from Streets of Rage. Just the regular, the average sized guy. Then there's Smasher, who's a big brute, like huge looking dude, like Zangief.
With a great smile.
Yeah. And then there's 2 females. There's Alana and Mace. So they 2 female characters and 2 male characters. And they each have, I think, their own like kind of like little special that they do. I don't recall which each one is, but yeah, it's kind of a slow game. Like it can be a little frustrating. I think at the time, like it was just so new and cool that I was like that didn't really faze me. But now looking at it and seeing it, it's like it's slow and it's getting used to that kind of 3D feel, I guess, like translating that world of beat 'em up. But I remember being a lot of fun. I played the hell out of the game. I think I did actually beat it, which I didn't beat a lot of games back in that era. PlayStation maybe more so because you could do saves and it wasn't you didn't have to play everything in one sitting. I think most beat 'em ups were, if you knew what you were doing and you didn't die incessantly, they'd only like offer like an hour of gameplay to get through it, an hour or less. I think Fighting Force is maybe double that, even if you didn't like die or you're playing well.
Now, were you a Fighting Force 2 fan?
I remember that. I think I was aware of that game, but I don't think I actually played it. And I think that probably got panned. I didn't check the reviews of this, but I don't think people look back on this as fondly. Like I just remember having a lot of fun with it, and like playing the hell out of it, and just beat 'em up for me was a really fun genre.
That's all you need sometimes. It's your enjoyment.
Yeah, I think again, like it's PlayStation. I probably had only just gotten the PlayStation because I never got the consoles like on day one back then. It was always like a year or two later.
Yeah.
So just the 3D was like was a novelty, and like not just a novelty, but it was like, oh, this is the next level. And just playing a game like, this way was like a lot of fun.
Even if it's not like the best game, if you find enjoyment, like if your favorite game is Barbie Horse Adventures, I don't care. If you have a blast at it, go nuts. Like just play something, have fun.
Were you around when
Twitch stream that?
Dave and I were playing, I think, like the Barbie game that's on PlayStation Plus.
As you already know, me and my sisters, Barbie, Stacy, and Chelsea, run Robert's Sisters Rescue, which you can see behind me. Now, rescuing puppies can be serious business, but what you may not know is that it can be a whole lot of fun too, and I can prove it.
No, wait, that sounds familiar, but I think you might have just told me about it.
Yeah, because just the game is fucking garbage, but we played it for a good, like, 45 minutes.
Oh, wait, yes, I think I was around for that then.
It was bad. Like, that was one of the worst games we've ever played, and just the sheer fact of how fucking terrible it was, I understand why some people enjoy playing bad games like that, but the amount of fun we had, like, I gotta give them credit. Like, y'all screwed up big time when it came to, like, putting this on the shelf and comparing it to, like, some of the greatest games I've ever played, but, like, for the enjoyment of it being a free game that I could quickly play, it held up.
Also considering that you were not their demographic at all, and you
Nope.
still found at least 45 minutes of enjoyment with it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Also, I think, Nick, were you the one who had rented the Hannah Montana game on PS3 because it had a super easy platinum trophy unlock to add to your collection?
I vaguely remember that, but I didn't play it. Because I don't think that's on my list of platinum.
I just remember it being essentially like you put the disc in, you go through the menus and whatnot, and it's like, congratulations, you've unlocked a platinum trophy.
Yeah, pretty much, right? No, that is not.
They sent you a real trophy.
Now you're making me paranoid. I gotta look to see, because I honestly don't remember.
So, Dean.
It's funny looking back on the Fighting Force. Like, I guess, you know, we play Metal Gear Solid, we play Final Fantasy, we play Fighting Force. I lump those three together. They're on the same level. Just those graphics, like, I mean, 2D sprites and Genesis and SNES, those graphics, I mean, you accept what they were because they're not looking real. But once 3D comes into the mix, it's like, back then we're like, this is amazing. And just all the aliasing and the terrible quote unquote. Now looking back at it, it's funny to think how real it felt to us. But
which
those were the days.
Makes more sense now because Fighting Force, being through Eidos, I think the reason why they handled or they were involved with I want to say like the PC version of Final Fantasy VII is because Eidos was Square Enix Europe.
Yeah, I think they got like absorbed or something.
Yeah,
something there.
Because later on, I know Squaresoft on PS2 did The Bouncer. That was another 3D beat 'em up game. That was terrific. I know for anybody that listened to our fighting games episode, I know David was singing its praises for years before I finally played it. But then that would make sense of they already had a background in doing three-dimensional fighting games. Or rather, three-dimensional beat 'em up games, and then kind of moved over to there and that one definitely had the more Square sensibilities with the spiky hair and the more anime with their hands on their hips and the big eyes and
big eyes like Kevin Nash.
I hope they solve that mystery. And nothing happened.
Yeah, that's not Streets of Rage. That's Fighting Force. The Streets of Rage that almost was.
So I guess that brings us to my number 3, which was originally, in 1991, it was an arcade game, and then transitioned over to SNES in 1994, which is, I probably played it like a year or something after that, and then it kind of tucked away for a while in my brain. It is The King of Dragons. So it was a Capcom game. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
Oh.
So
Heard of Capcom? No.
little thing, never did anything else.
Small indie company.
While there's other games overall that pretty much has a greater nostalgic grasp over my childhood, I feel this was one of the actual best beat 'em up games I played over the years, just because aside from being a fun IP or something like that, it was actually some cool stuff in the game itself. So like when I only played it a handful of times on SNES growing up, and then later on they ended up re-releasing it, I think in 2018 as part of the Capcom beat 'em up pack or something like that, on I want to say like PS3. So the whole thing is you choose one of 5 characters that are all different traditional RPG races and classes. So like you have an elf ranger, a human fighter, so on and so forth from there. But the whole thing is as you get gold, as you fight guys and get points and whatnot, you end up leveling up. It increases your total health, it increases your stats, everything like that, and you kind of get better stuff as time goes on, which it was cool at the time because I was getting into all of these more RPG things, and it started to kind of give that transition of me liking these more traditional games and then getting more into the leveling and the RPG mechanics for things. It's fun because punching people is fine, but punching people while watching a bar goes up is even better. So that's why this one ended up kind of sticking with me over time.
Well, now, okay, so this game, okay, yeah, it's a side scroller, it's 2D, but there's RPG elements, so now it's like Fighting Force, it's disqualified from being a beat-em-up game. No, it looks cool. I've never heard of this. Because it's an SNES game, and I was a Genesis person. But I'm pretty sure this was not on the Sega. But it looks cool. It's like nice, and it's very fast paced. It seems.
Yeah, and I remember it having a lot
cool
of just
enemies.
I think it was like 16 levels or something like that. But there were just a lot of cool bosses, like a Hydra fight with the 3 heads and all this other stuff.
Dragons,
and then like each
wyverns.
Yeah, and then like depending on which character you picked, some would have strengths and weaknesses, some would be faster, or some would have like better agility for blocking, or they would have spells they can cast and things like that. So it was a lot of cool additions rather than just the walk to either side, punch, jump, punch, and throw.
Yeah, the RPG, I don't in that format, like the left to right or side scrolling beat 'em ups. I can't say that I've really played many that had like that level up feature. Or like, gaining, what would you gain? Would you actually gain like items or just like stats or both?
Stats.
Or?
So like you would have higher health. You would have like, I think, better damage. You would have better defense, like all those types of things.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the next one on my list doesn't similar.
So yeah, King of Dragons. Anybody that doesn't know it, check it out. I think it might still be part of that Capcom beat 'em up bundle. And it's definitely worth a look. Seeing as you can probably get it for a song these days.
Might have had some Golden Axe influence.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So number 2, Nick.
Actually lied. My number 1 spot is one with that. I haven't played this one since pretty much it came out. But you already actually said it. And it's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. And it was a movie tie-in for when the movie actually came out. And you pretty much control Scott Pilgrim and Friends in the same art style as the actual manga comic book that was released with the same title. And you just carried out scenes through the movie, and it has all the different X's as the different bosses that you would eventually fight and play against. And it was so random of a game to come out at that time, because no one was expecting a beat 'em up of all things, and it was actually really good. And I had a lot of good times playing it. I didn't finish it or play it through completion. It's like I said, it felt like every 10 years I had a new beat 'em up that I actually played quite a bit, and this was one of them. So when it came out, we did the multiplayer thing with it, It was pretty cool, especially on PlayStation at the time. There wasn't really too many co-op games that you can really sit down and play on a couch. And that was one of them.
Yeah, which I don't remember how close this came out after or around the time of the movie. But do you remember if we got into this one because of the movie, or because I know I got the books as a gift, but I had never, like, I didn't go into it being a fan of reading them. I didn't read them at that point. So I think we just got into it because it was a beat 'em up and it was fun.
I don't think actually you were around when I was playing it.
Oh, then I might have played it without you.
Yeah. I think you were off in college doing college things.
Yeah, playing Scott Pilgrim.
I love that the game starts. I know the Ninja Turtles arcade game had this. I think it was on several arcade games at the time in the early 90s. The FBI logo comes up and says, "Winners don't use drugs." That's what was on real games, like at the arcade. William S. Sessions, director, FBI. And on Scott Pilgrim, it's the Vegan Bureau of Investigation. It says, "Winners don't eat meat." William S. Broccoli, director.
Freeze! Vegan police! Vegan police!
It's just it's a fun callback to those games and the movie itself. Who's the vegan in the movie? Is it one of the
Brandon
boyfriends?
Routh. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's a funny.
What was
callback.
it? It was like chicken parmesan or something. Wait, chicken isn't vegan?
I never played Scott Pilgrim. I love the movie. Didn't read the manga, but
It was good. I think it was like
things be up my alley. I mean, we all love beat 'em ups essentially. So
because I think when it came out too, it was only like a $10 game, and at the time there weren't really that many games that were cheap. It was either you're spending $2 on like this quick thing that's not going to be of high quality, or you're going to be spending $60 regardless of quality.
right.
And that one
It
kind
was
of
like a fun surprise arcade title.
yeah, and that's why it had some kind of sticking power. I mean, like I said, I didn't play it for that long of a time period. I think I only played it for like maybe 2 or 3 months tops. But the time I did have with it was really fun.
I think also it was great because it was clearly one of those games that was made coming from a place of probably growing up and loving those types of games. So it had all of the original things that it was pulling in from traditional beat 'em ups, but still had the humor and kind of the elements of the actual like Scott Pilgrim comics and movie and everything like that. So it ended up being more than just a rip-off type thing of some older things as a joke game. It was fun in its own right.
Yeah, the art style too is cool. It's like very pixelated, not in a kind of blending modern technology, but with a really classic pixelation style.
Yeah, it's clever on how they managed to do it. It's nice when you're able to make a retro style game with like modern technology. You're able to take it that one step further that they couldn't do back then.
It's what we saw back then, but now with what we've seen today.
Yeah, it's like the rose
bringing it
tinted
to the modern.
Like the rose tinted goggles are actually how we originally saw it.
You wore rose tinted goggles. I just had the glasses.
Yeah.
It's like what's the old Dolly Parton quote? It takes a lot of money to look this cheap. Put a lot of work into it to make it look like a 1990 game.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that I would like to at some point dig up. But the problem is, I feel like a lot of these games, unless they get a re-release or unless they decide to release them on like PC or something, it's harder and harder to like break out a PlayStation 2 and play one of these, or like break out a PlayStation 3 and find the game again. So I'll need to see kind of what other things it got released for, just to try to take another look at it, because I do remember having a lot of fun on that. That would be something that would be a great release on Switch.
It's on Switch.
Oh. Thanks, Nintendo. I'll buy it.
Great minds.
It came back. Actually, it came out like a month ago.
Serendipitous.
Yeah, right. Release date January 14th, 2021.
Wow. Okay, so Dean, buy it on Switch. We'll all get back into it. So, Dean, your number 2 game.
My number 2 I almost want to say it's 2 games, but I just chose one of them. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time.
This is Cowabungie. And this is Cowabungo. But the turtles for your 16-bit system are Cowabunga! Holy cow, it's Turtles in Time! The cool arcade game for Super NES, now with tasty turtle duels. And psych up your Sega Genesis with the Hyper Stone Heist and all new 3D Turtle Thrash. So remember, this is Cowabingo. But the turtles for Super NES and Sega Genesis are...
Cowabunga, dude.
That was your number
Now this-
2?
That's my number 2.
I'm actually really interested on your number 1 now.
Yeah,
'cause
can we skip
I thought
this
that was
one?
like a shoo-in.
Yeah.
Number 1 is... No, I'm not going to say that yet. Number 2, Turtles in Time. So I think I played more so the first arcade game, which is just Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. But I played Turtles in Time as well, and I'm going based on the arcade experience here. Well, because I was a Sega kid again, they didn't get Turtles in Time. They had kind of a bastard version of it called the Hyperstone Heist, which was essentially the same game, but
We have turtles at home.
SNES got Turtles in Time like the full port, but I don't know if it was a technology thing, like why they didn't just port the full game to Genesis. I don't recall the differences other than the title. Some of the bosses were different.
I think that one, the original one, was legitimate, like an arcade cabinet.
Wait, say Hyperstone?
Yeah. Well,
No, that was only a Genesis version of essentially Turtles in Time, because they shared so much of the same like fabric, like, and some of the levels, half the levels were the same, but the story was just story, quote unquote, was just slightly different.
Maybe it was that strict Nintendo censor.
Yeah, maybe. But this
couldn't
is
have
one
any
of
of
those
that Sega Genesis violence.
Some of the ports were weird though, because you'll play the same game across multiple platforms, and they'll be completely different from one another. And I never understood that either.
I mean, unless it was a case of when they hired the studios to do because I feel like nowadays, if they're doing multiple systems, it's usually the same studio doing all of it. And I think back then there were some cases of different people's job is to port the game over. So they might have taken it as an opportunity of like, hey, I can do some things differently and improve on it, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So if you worked on Turtles in Time, let us know. We want to pick your brain.
The Turtles in Time, as opposed to the first game, just a regular Turtles arcade game, it just had just like better animation, just kind of like upped the ante, I guess, with what they gave us in the first game, which was great. Like going to the arcade and having 4 pads so 4 people could stand there and play, and you could have all turtles on screen at the same time. It made for a lot of awesome just experiences, and it's like fucking bananas on screen with all 4 turtles jumping around and just destroying all the foot soldiers on the screen.
Plus, I feel like that and a lot of those games where it was the arcade cabinets with like 4 or 6 players or something like that across there, it was fun of going up and playing it and then just having random other people coming up and hopping on the other characters. And it's like, we don't know who each other is, but we just became best friends for the next $1 and change.
Yeah. Yeah, I that happened a couple times with me. I don't remember any of those kids. They just they walked away, and
that's how you met your wife. No? Oh.
Yeah, so it has the same gameplay feel, but the sprites are nicer. The weapon animations are cooler. If you do a combo on Foot Soldier, I don't know what activates it, but they would occasionally just throw the Foot Soldier towards the screen, so it gave it this really cool 3D kind of effect.
I love that.
Yeah, that was like cool when it happened. Yeah, it's pandemonium with 4 people on the screen. I think it kind of made the game a little bit easier, because I don't think it's really scaled the difficulty that high. Like if you there's only so much room on the screen to add enemies, and when you add 4 players, they can't just add 4 times the amount of enemies. So it kind of made it easier to get through the game, actually. So the more the merrier when you were playing that one. And I was curious to see like because this came out in 91, I think, in the arcade. I think the other game came out in 90 or 89. Gauntlet, I think. I looked this up. Gauntlet was the original, the OG like 4-player cabinet game, and that was in like in 84 or 85, I think. I never played Gauntlet till Nintendo 64 on Gauntlet Legends.
Yep. I don't know why I got so excited.
I don't know what
for
the
that
arcade
game.
was like.
Like, I never grew up with the original or whatnot, and then I remember hearing about Gauntlet Legends and just immediately, we need to buy this game.
Yep. I remember
it's a sequel to something I wasn't around for.
I remember moving to West Haven, and that was like the biggest rage between like Dave, your brother. Everyone wanted to play Gauntlet. Like, I go over to Doug's house, and that's all it was. Like, let's play Gauntlet. I'm like, I've never played this before in my life, and I think I played it for like 20 seconds, and then every sleepover after I just watched. I never got into it.
I remember it being fun, but I remember also part of the fun was I think there were unlockable characters or something, and I will always support any game that ends up having like actual unlockables that aren't just like, I hate when it's like, oh, we have all these unlockables for completing the game, and it's just like, we have a gallery of pictures. Well, give me like characters, costumes, things like that that can unlock. Gives me something to strive for. But I remember that being the drive for Gauntlet.
Like.
So, did you? So I remember. I remember Turtles in Time. I think it was if you beat the game, it starts over from the beginning in a time loop. And it gets harder every time.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Did you ever? Because like we had it on SNES, so like it's
right.
It's free once you buy the price of admission. So like I think we only ever played through it like 2 times back to back. But I remember hearing that like it always ends with the time loop to how the game starts, and then it goes through again.
Oh, I didn't remember that at all. Do you remember if the difficulty was like the AI was better, or like you took more damage, like getting hit?
Oh, I don't recall. I'd have to go back and play it again.
There wasn't really like it was kind of just like pick your favorite turtle. Like there's no one has an advantage over the other. They just all do it, their own version of the same moves.
I think the only real difference was the fact that the weapons that they use actually had accurate range. So I remember playing Raphael all the time, and my brother would play Donatello, and his staff was definitely a longer reach than what I had.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Which is fine, because I always just went into close range so I can just hip toss everybody.
Right. I also love the trope. I mean, it's a trope to lots of games, but the blinking boss that just starts to blink faster and faster. There's no health bar. You just have to hit it until it's dead. And the only indication was that they would start to flash red or whatever color.
Well, I know the other, as far as like the blinking of in and out, for like if you would throw somebody on the ground for a boss or something, or like knock them down, and then they would blink to indicate that they can't take damage right now. Oh, and it took me a while to figure out, like, Scott, we can't keep letting him get away with this. He just keeps getting up and
keep getting away with
folding me like laundry.
I don't know if it was psychological too, or if it was actual difficulty increase. But the more they blinked, it felt like, oh, they're moving faster and they're hitting harder and harder to avoid their hits. That might have just been psychological, just because they were flashing. It almost seemed like they were going to explode like a time bomb. That's how I looked at it anyway. Oh, this came out after, or right the same month as Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze.
It had Taka and Razor.
Yeah, they're bosses in this game. So that was cool. They must have, during production of this game, were like, yeah, we've got these two new characters, so throw them in.
And they literally did just that. They had no reference compared to the movie. Like, I think one of them was like a pirate.
I don't remember, but you might be right.
Yeah, or like a caveman. Or something.
I think you fight one of them on like a ship. Yeah.
The text still says Bebop and Rocksteady, and then they come out. Just like hastily scribbled out.
The story is funny because it's like, you know, you're in the sewers or whatever, just fighting dudes, and then Shredder just appears and is like, I'm transporting you back in time, and hopefully I could kill you back there. But if you would have just sent them back in time, his problems would have been solved.
Just leave them there.
Well, instead of making a time portal, couldn't you have made like a death portal instead? And, like, if I throw you through this portal, you will just instantly die. Like, well, you got him through the time portal. Why couldn't you just made it lethal? Or
on the other end of the...
Throw him back in time and just, like, shut the machine off. Like, why do you need to kill him?
Exactly.
And why do you need to put a second machine back in time that they can then find and use?
I mean, it's like you beat a level and it's like, oh, now you're going to this time period. Like, just leave them there and they're out of your hair. Or on the other end of the portal, it's just a bed of spikes and they just fall.
Yeah.
And that's the.
Just forever, they just keep going time to time to time, hoping that the next leap will be the leap home.
There's also a really insensitive, not really insensitive, but like, haha, this is a fun Turtles game. They go back to like the 1800s, like west, and you're on a train. The level is called Bury My Shell at Wounded Knee, which I don't know if you know is a reference to like the book about like the horrible treatment of the Native Americans, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It's like, let's just call this level this because it's in relation.
Might as well have been like Donner, Party of Five.
Donnie.
We had to eat Donnie.
So I just saw that and I was like, oh man, that's... Just, I guess it's sign of the times too, like, you know, not taking all that stuff as seriously, but...
They're kids, they're not going to know any better.
No, the kids don't know, but it's just like, why are you making light of that? It's like, okay, there's no other puns you can come up with that don't reference.
And it wasn't even a particularly good pun.
Right. Like, shell is the pun. Like, just stick it in some other line. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that just
used a
stuck out to me
Meatloaf soundtrack and then like bat out a shell or something.
There's actually a 2020 level. Like, you're sent to the future. And it's that typical like cyberpunk, like, we're going to have flying cars and neon lights everywhere in 2020.
Yep. Nailed it.
No, it's like no flying cars, no cyborgs. It's still racism and wipe your butts with toilet paper instead of the 3 seashells.
GameStop's still around.
Right.
We got it all right.
Yeah, I would say honorable mention on the NES. Actually, there was Turtles 3, which was a sequel to. They ported the original arcade game and called it Turtles 2, but then they made their own game called Turtles 3 Manhattan Project, and that was on the NES, and that gets honorable mention because I think it's the only game that gave me blisters playing NES, like with how much I played and just mashed the buttons. And I played through the pain.
Again, after their other thing, so they named their third game Turtles 3 Manhattan Project?
That's a good point.
After the work being done on the nuclear weapons in World War II.
I am become Krang, destroyer of worlds.
Good God.
Yeah, But that's Turtles in Time. One of my loves and a really fun, good beat 'em up game.
And now I am doubly invested in what your number one's going to be.
It's typical, but
so my number 2 is very on par for the course, considering my love of comics. If you guys in 1996 ever played Iron Man, Exo, Man of War, and Heavy Metal.
Is that the official release title?
That's the title.
I never knew Iron Man had a game pre-MCU.
Yeah. So this one was as we know, a side-scroller beat 'em up. So you could either go like off to the right and it would go on to the next screen, or you can go to the left and go to the next screen. It wasn't like traditionally always go right. So I don't have any like specific memories to this game other than that I remember loving it on PC. My brother and I played it a ton. It naturally had like Iron Man and Marvel characters. There was like, I think, Yellow Jacket, Goliath, and all these other characters. I think, I want to say Baron Helmut Zemo and Arn Zola. But so the fun thing was the crossover with the Valiant Comics characters. In this case, it was Exo Manowar, called Exo because his two powers were a kiss of death and a bear hug. So the
Cheeky.
whole also don't look that up; it's not real. So the Exo Manowar, most likely Exo Manowar showed up in it because around this time it was published by Acclaim Entertainment, and Acclaim bought out Valiant, and they formed Acclaim Comics. And for like a year and a half or something, they were doing their own comic from there before it kind of, I guess, was short-lived and fell apart. And then Valiant made a kind of a big comeback in 2011, 2012 with like Harbinger, and then a re-release of new Exo Manowar and Ninjak and all that fun stuff. So another fun thing if you ever like comics. So the whole thing is you can side scroll and enter scene to the right or left, as well as you can like shoot blasts into the background to hit guys.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. That's cool. It's like it's kind of a 3D game-ish. There's like 3D... Yeah, like the parallaxing. It's not just parallaxing, it's actual... It makes it feel like a 3D platform.
It almost reminds me of Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
but
like you can use your boosters and whatnot to like fly around also. Which was cool. And so there were like slight differences between the characters, which made it fun to play one over the other because like it wasn't identical. So like naturally I ended up playing Iron Man. My brother played Exo. And I'm pretty sure that had some level of subconscious impact on him getting into Valiant Comics later in life. Seeing as he's the one who found out that they were being re-released and kind of made a comeback, and he got me into, I think, Harbinger starting off. So Valiant Comics, fun stuff. So yeah, like if it's... I know it did not get favorable reviews. It was considered, I guess, like repetitive and unfun by most reviewers. But I had a blast with it. Plus the IP for it, just knowing like I get all of these comic characters at a time where I was just getting into Marvel stuff was very cool for me. And plus, having something that you can play with somebody else was fun at that time.
They said the same shit about Fighting Force, but we loved what we loved.
Yeah. So, yeah, Iron Man, Exo, Manowar, and Heavy Metal. Definitely, I mean, it's not anything you need to track down, but go on YouTube and just check it out. It's certainly a product of the time, but it was a blast, and it was... I think the last time we really saw Marvel and Valiant Comics crossover, other than this, and then the tie-in comic series.
I'm more interested just because this is before Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, was there a lot of... Iron Man was considered a B character, for a long time, right, Tim? Or no?
I mean, like, he was part of the Avengers and whatnot, so
I guess that's true.
Like, if you liked Marvel, you would still be aware of
True.
Iron Man and all of that. It just, he wasn't in the forefront where non-comics people, you can walk up and be like, oh, Iron Man, and everybody knows Iron Man. It wasn't like Superman or Batman kind of deal.
Yeah, and I guess that was my question of like, there was Iron Man. Were there other games that had that, if you read Marvel, but if, everyone knows Spider-Man, everybody knows...
I don't recall a lot of Marvel games around that time other than traditionally like I think Iron Man.
I think X-Men had like The big
Yeah.
one,
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
X-Men
Iron
were-
Man,
were
X-Men,
fairly well
Spider-Man.
known because of the cartoon. Yeah.
I think they did have, I want to say, an Avengers game or a Captain America game or something on Sega back in the day, but that one I've never played. I know there's probably like dozens, but like out of ones that were in my consciousness during that time, that was the main one.
What was the X-Men platformer beat 'em up game? I almost went with that one.
There were a couple
for one of my choices.
because
I think it
there's
was
the
a Sega one.
Yeah,
I
there
don't
was
know
a
if it
Sega one that I
ported to
know
both
the cover had I think arcade on it that they had. I know there was the traditional X-Men arcade game that was like the 4 or 6 player cabinet, and then I think SNES had another. Well, probably a bunch of them. They had another X-Men game that was like a side scroller and like the platformer of like going up vertically as opposed in addition to left to right kind of deal.
Yeah. Actually, the one I had and played it was just called X-Men.
Yeah,
You know, it started you off with Gambit, and there was Nightcrawler and Wolverine, and it kind of went back. And I don't know if you could just swap between those guys. Maybe that was it. You could just swap between them. Or
Yeah,
maybe it was level based, but
because
yeah.
the one I was
X-Men at the
thinking
time.
of was X-Men Mutant Apocalypse for SNES,
Yeah, I hadn't played that one.
and then it was also Spider-Man and X-Men in Arcade's Revenge was the other one I was thinking of.
They made an arcade cabinet you can buy. For this one is just
I want it.
the classic X-Men one.
Yeah, because Mutant Apocalypse was the one that was, I think, Cyclops, Gambit, Beast, Wolverine, and Psylocke, which was fun that those are the ones they chose and not like Jean Grey. You get to play as Psylocke, which was a nice change. And it's always fun when you get to play as Gambit, even though Wolverine was my go-to for the longest time.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of fun stuff out there. But Iron Man, XO, Manowar, and Heavy Metal. Check the game out and then go check out Valiant Comics. A lot of cool stuff out there. Which now brings us to Nick, your number one beat 'em up game of all time.
The number one on my list. Not of all
Yeah,
time.
your.
Nope. All time.
All time. Castle Crashers. Originally played on the Xbox 360.
That was a blast.
I enjoyed it. Still never beat it, but I don't really need to beat it. I've had a lot of good times with it. I remember going to parties and getting drunk playing this.
I think I've only played that game with you guys,
Possibly.
which is always a good time.
I mean, it's another one of the ones that, like you said, like you don't need to beat it. It's just you pick it up, you can start from the beginning every time, and just it's fun to
much
just
what
kick
happens.
around in.
Yep.
Plus, I like that there were unlockables and whatnot in it. Getting like the Undead Knight and all these other ones that were cool because it this way you have all these little abilities and things like that all of them have, rather than all of them being cookie cutter.
Yep. They all had their one special power. You can rank them up in terms of damage and spell power, HP and stuff, but it was all the same across the board. But every colored knight had a different special thing going about them that they all had. So it was always fun. And then you can swap out your weapon, and it just had different stats. So, like, depending on what you did, you might deal more damage, but you'll also take more damage, or you might deal less physical damage, but it'll buff up your range, that kind of stuff. And it was always fun to do and kick around. Because, like, again, like, there's not many 4+ player co-op games. And that happened to be one of them. Then I played more co-op than I did by myself.
Do you remember if there was a knight that you played more than others?
No.
How powerful is the lollipop? Looks like a good weapon.
I don't remember getting it.
I'm watching. I'm aware of Castle Crashers, but each game we talk about, I'm pulling it up on YouTube just to kind of discuss while I refresh my memory.
I feel like Castle Crashers is one of those ones that even if you didn't play it during the time, it's probably still stupid easy to find these days, and it would still be just as fun now.
Yeah, I know they remastered it and they put it back out on Xbox One, but I haven't played it since. Again, it's one of those, like, I'm not going to play this by myself. And with the other games out there, like, I have other things I could possibly play. This isn't going to be one of them.
The video I'm looking at was uploaded this month, and there's multiple, it's multiplayer, so it's something you could definitely still find and play with people. Check it out.
Yeah, and I think it's another one that is available for Switch, which I think is
be a great
perfect opportunity for it, because it's like it's a simple game, it's fun, it's something that you can play mobile if that's the case. So yeah, Dean, if you've never played it before and you want to, I'll send it to you on Switch. We'll play it.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be the perfect, like, when you play Mario Party, everybody has to divvy up the Joy-Cons and then become tiny controllers, but I feel like it would work.
Yeah, in this case. It does. I always like their humor too, because they had that other game that they did, the
Alien Hominid.
No, what?
Didn't they do another one, Alien Hominid?
Let's see. I know it's one of the top ones. It's like, that is one of the other ones that I didn't play. That Battle Block Theater.
Oh yes, I remember. Yeah, that one was fun.
I like their humor that they put in their games. And Castle Crashers is entirely silent. There's no, like, voice stuff going on, so it's all visual gags and stuff. And it was always funny to, like, you're playing this part, and then, like, some big scary things come along, and then you just see, like, the deer, like, crap itself because it's so scared, and then it runs away. The way that it's portrayed in the cartoon fashion makes it funny.
So actually, I mean, how much these days is Castle Crashers?
Castle
Crashers.
Like Castle Crashers was this.
So how much is Castle Crashers on Switch? Oh, that's not bad. It's $15.
15.
So if you guys ever want to relive the glory days of Castle Crashers, I will send out copies, and it's up to 4 people. So send a email to Screen Refresh.
We're having a second contest.
If you're the first person to say you want to play Castle Crashers, I'll send you a copy on Switch.
That's all there is to it.
So yeah, I think that's a great choice. I knew at some point it would end up getting mentioned. It was just a matter if it was going to be on the list or in the honorable mentions.
If Dean didn't mention Turtles in Time, I would have wanted to re-record this entire
You would have changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had that on backup.
We would have called an audible and just...
I gave it to you. If you didn't say it, that would have been mine, because that's the one that I truly grew up with. The only one that I put more than, like, 10 hours of gameplay into. Like, this one was like, I played this for, like, hours at a time, for days on end, Turtles in Time. Like, yeah, I played a bunch of Castle Crashers and Scott Pilgrim, but nothing that holds a candle to that game, so...
Well, if Dean didn't pick it, I would have cut out his actual number 1, and then we would have pieced together a review of it using words from other episodes. I'm sure I don't have a lack of times him saying Turtles.
One game is... Yeah, right. I mean, that game, it transcends not... Obviously, I'm a huge fan. Nick's we're all huge fans of the Turtles, but it transcends that and is just a good game, too.
Yeah.
It's just a really fun game.
I actually had a couple of the Power Ranger games on... like as honorable mentions. Like the
they
Power
had a beat 'em
Rangers
up. Yeah, they had a well-known beat 'em up on SNES.
Yeah, they weren't that great, but just in comparison to the other picks, I felt my other picks had a lot more substance to them. The Power Rangers games, I mean, like one of them, every Power Ranger looks the same except that their colors are different, and that's kind of lame. But the fact that, like in your head, like, I'm the Blue Ranger, this is awesome, even though he's literally identical to the Red Ranger except for the color palette.
Cut and paste.
I remember they had one that I played on PC that was the Power Rangers Zeo game. That was actually a lot of fun for the time, I recall, because each of them had their own weapon and whatnot, so at least I remember them being different. So there was like one Ranger that I would clearly like above the other ones. But that brings us to Dean. Your number 1 beat-em-up game.
I'm sorry about all this build-up that you guys created. This build-up. I didn't do this. And you'll say, "Oh," or "I'm ready to take the wind out of your sails."
Mortal Kombat.
My number 1 beat 'em up game. No, Streets of Rage 2.
Oh,
that's fair.
That's legit.
It's a
Streets
classic.
of Rage 2.
I was-
Oh yeah,
I was
it is.
expect-
I just mean like I feel like that's probably on maybe more than 50% of people's number one beat 'em up game is Streets of Rage 2.
I mean, like we were saying a while back in one of the other episodes, granted, these are our personal favorite lists, not like what we feel are the overall best ones. But sometimes your favorite one is the best one, because
Yeah.
a good game's a good game.
For a reason. Streets of Rage 2, I can't remember the total difference between... I didn't play the first one that much, I don't think. I played 2 and 3. And 3 had a different character, one or two different characters, but I put so much time into Streets of Rage 2. And it's not like I was like a master of any of these games, but just... I don't know what it was about Streets of Rage 2 that I loved just picking it up and playing it all the time. I think firing the game up and just hearing like the screams of the enemies, like when it's just the same scream when you beat them. I was like, Tim will play it, but it's just please play that scream, as much as you want, because I don't know, it sounds like they're dying a horrible death.
Was it like a Wilhelm?
Yeah. And I guess to be fair, like we as humans don't know what it feels like to blink rapidly and disappear, but that's what's happening to these enemies.
Peer beyond the void.
Yeah, it could be extremely painful. Although things, in Endgame, disappearing doesn't seem that painful, maybe just slightly alarming.
I don't know. Spider-Man didn't feel so good.
Yeah, he didn't feel so well. It's Spidey's, his power was contributed to that part of it. But they had Streets of Rage had the 4 characters. There was Axel, who's just seemed like he would be the quote unquote main character, even though you could play through the game with whoever you wanted. And they actually had stats. Each character had their own strengths and weaknesses. I like to main. My main was Max, who was the Zangief-looking grappler, kind of dressed like a wrestler too. Character. I would imagine they took a lot of inspiration from Zangief because this came out in December '92. Street Fighter 2 was '91 at some point.
Yeah, Max looks very much like if you took Ryu and Sagat and combined them, since he has like the black hair, but then he has the scar.
Right. Each player had like their own special moves. Max would do like a, what do you call it, a lariat, like a spinning spinning
that's
hit. I
definitely
think
Zangief.
Zangief does that too. Yeah, he pile drives as well.
And
But
Axel
he was just, I guess,
Blanca.
right. I guess just because he was
Gross fur and
huge.
sets on electricity.
I guess just because he was huge, I was like, yeah, I'm being the strong. He's big, so he's obviously the best. But his jump was low and his speed was low. But just I'm always drawn to these strong characters, no matter their other stats, like an X-Men, or not X-Men. What is the Marvel game? The modern
Ultimate
Marvel
Alliance?
game? Ultimate Alliance. Yeah, I'm always Juggernaut, always Colossus.
Bruiser Brigade.
Yeah, the Bruiser Brigade.
Bruisers!
Exactly. Like that's just what I gravitate to. So Max,
I mean, it's a
was my
beat 'em
guy.
up game.
Yeah, you see big muscles, you're like, well, that's gotta be the right answer.
You came prepared.
Axel didn't have great jump. He had good technique and above average strength.
Good
there
technique. He
was
had
the
great
female-
fundamentals.
Great fundamentals. Yeah, he has a cool. Oh, speaking of Street Fighter, yeah, Zangief, like his unique special move was kind of like a dragon punch, except he didn't leave the ground. He just kind of slid forward, but big uppercut, sending people across the screen.
Yeah, I mean,
There
just
was-
looking at the screenshots from it, I would think that Capcom did it. Because even the barrels on some of the
Yeah.
levels and whatnot, it looks
Yeah.
like Street Fighter.
It's very similar style, and it had that. I guess it's '92, so the sprites and the animation, still very low amount of frames, I guess you would say, in their animations, kind of like Street Fighter. Yeah, Now that you mention it, they put there's a shitload of Street Fighter like influence in this game. That's why it was so good, right? Like take a good formula and just add it to a different game. The other characters, Skate, very original name. He was the cool young black kid on rollerblades who was very good at jumping, very good at speed. He had a really cool... Like, I liked playing Max, but playing as Skate was cool. His special was, like, he would, like, speed skate at them and, like, do a diving headbutt and send them flying across the screen, which was just very satisfying. And then there was Blaze, the female character, who was just kind of jack of all trades as far as stats. She was, like, average across the board, so you could... Her special was probably the worst. It just kind of like a little somersault that she did. Unless there's something I'm missing, but...
You never unlock the full potential of Blaze.
Blaze. Don't sleep on Blaze. Apparently. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to see with Streets of Rage 4.
Yes. Yeah, everybody, whoever that lucky person is, I'm gonna get Streets of Rage and we're all gonna play it.
Dean, you're not allowed to email. Me? The real fish.
This is also one of the... I don't know of any other games that would bring back... Like, you'd get to a boss character, and some of them became enemies that would spawn, like, throughout the game. So you have, like, the level 1 regular characters, and then you beat a boss, but that guy becomes, like, a cut-paste enemy later on. Not necessarily as difficult as when you fought him as a boss, but...
I don't remember any cases of that happening as far as the ones that I can think of.
I think I just remember having that oh shit like moment when I saw that guy come across the screen again. I'm like, wait a minute, I already killed him.
Now there's 4 of him.
Exactly. Most memorable level, I guess, is you're in a baseball stadium, and then he's just like some of the fattest dudes come out, and you have to fight them. I don't know why fat dudes are associated with baseball, but maybe because I guess Babe Ruth was heftier than normal, and he was still a star, and like. It's kind of like basketball. Like an average Joe can be a sports hero. If you can hit a damn ball, you can be a legend. But yeah, these fat guys they're the bosses at the baseball level. They come back too.
One day, Reamer, I'm going to be a big sports
star. Also, just throwing a knife across the stage at dudes was just very satisfying too. Like just totally end them with a knife to the face. They go flying.
That's not beat 'em up.
It defies the laws of physics, but it's satisfying. Yeah, Streets of Rage 2. I'm looking forward to Streets of Rage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm very interested. I mean, it's the same thing that happened when we did like the fighting games episode, things like that. Sitting here and rethinking a lot of the past ones and whatnot makes me excited to revisit or kind of get back into that specific genre. So I think Streets of Rage 4 and Castle Crashers is going to be fun to check out again. Or, well, check out one of them again and check out one of them for the first time.
Hell yeah.
So I guess that brings me to my number 1 game. It is another comic book one, Spider-Man: Separation Anxiety. It was 1995. It was originally, I think, SNES, Sega Genesis. I played it on PC, which means that my brother and I played it as a group, seeing as it was a co-op game. One person plays as Spider-Man, me. One person plays as Venom, my brother. But we had to play from the same keyboard, so I mean, it was very shoulder-to-shoulder kind of deal there, playing it. So I remember losing this game a lot, like a ton. I had to have played the first 2 levels a million times, and I only ever played it co-op. I never played it by myself just because it was so much easier under co-op that without it, I just wouldn't enjoy the game. So the whole story follows, I mean, there was a separation anxiety, I think, comic arc, but this one follows more so with Venom Lethal Protector, which ultimately culminates in Spider-Man finding Venom, and they team up to fight the offspring that were made using the Venom symbiote. It's was it Phage, Scream, Lasher, Riot, and the fifth one. And they ended up making like action figures and everything for all these symbiotes and whatnot. And I remember Lasher was my favorite, the dude with like the tentacle whip things. But it's very traditional. Like you walk left, right, foreground, background, so on and so forth. You used to be able to, if you jump, you can then web sling and kind of sling around and do that into attacks and whatnot, which was very cool. You can get power-ups that summon allies to pop in as assists, which I think this was the first time I was introduced to Ghost Rider, Hawkeye, and Daredevil, because they were assists in the game. Captain America, I think, was another one, but I already know
That's
him.
really cool.
Yeah, so like it's cool that you get it, and then all of a sudden you call an assist, and it's like Ghost Rider just rides in on his bike, whipping his chain around to clear the screen. Or like Matt Murdock drops in his Daredevil and whips his baton around.
It's the same animation, they just replaced the character.
You know, how Ghost Rider comes in on his bike with his chain, or Daredevil comes in on his bike with his baton, or Hawkeye comes in on his bike with his...
swinging an arrow.
Yeah. Captain America comes in with his shield on a chain. They missed their opportunity, instead of Cap, to keep with all of the... like the Marvel Knights, do Ghost Rider, Daredevil, then just have Punisher come out with a gun. What's his
He
assist?
swings his gun
Comes
around,
out
he
with a
doesn't
Glock
fire
and
it.
just shoots one guy and then just
He
walks
swings
away.
it around. He doesn't
swings
fire it.
swings a pistol around on a rope. It's a chain gun. So yeah, like I remember
the
having
punching sounds in this game are very satisfying. Like
Yes.
I love the sounds in the game.
Yeah, that it sounds like wet newspaper on concrete.
That's what punches to me. Or like a fish, like a
Yeah,
slapping
if your beat 'em
a
up
fish.
game doesn't sound like that, then I don't want it.
What made you go with this over the other Spider-Man Venom game? What the hell was that called?
Maximum Carnage?
Yes.
Because I played this one.
Oh, okay. You didn't play that one.
Because this one they had for PC. Maximum Carnage, we never had.
Gotcha.
So like for years, I didn't even realize that they had another game. And by the time that I found out they did, I was like, I played Separation Anxiety. Do I really want, like, I already have the one that I think is the better version. Why do I want to go back and play a different version? Plus, I don't remember if Maximum Carnage was co-op or if it was only Spider-Man. I don't remember if you can play as Venom in that one too.
You can. I'm watching a video and the guy's only playing as Venom.
Yeah.
So yeah, like this was during a big time for me that I like almost exclusively played co-op games. So like if I couldn't play with my brother, I just didn't play it until we like the PS2 days, I think, or like the N64 days where we started doing more single player, like Majora's Mask or Donkey Kong 64 or Devil May Cry, all of those types of things.
You being the younger brother, were you assigned Spider-Man and your brother's like, I'm being Venom? Or was it like, I'm happily be Spider-Man, I will happily be Venom?
I don't know if he chose it because he wanted it. I think it was I chose Spider-Man and I chose Iron Man, and I got them despite being the younger brother, just because he was more easygoing about it.
Something wrong with this picture.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
curious.
how I ended up doing that, and sticks with me to this day. So great thing. I think Spider-Man, Separation Anxiety, and like Iron Man XO Man of War, those helped keep my interest into getting into like things like comics and whatnot, which has kind of held over the years. So I think this is really what kind of started things off for me, between that and like my dad's comic collection.
Nice.
So do you guys have any honorable mentions that haven't been honorably mentioned?
I think I snuck mine in with the NES Manhattan Project.
I mentioned the Power Ranger one. The newer one that came out too was, if anything, a decent honorable mention. But I mean, it doesn't really. It was. I actually had to think about that one. My first thought was the classic ones from Super Nintendo, but the newest one that came out a couple years ago was actually pretty decent.
I also mentioned Golden Axe, but that would have been I was just debating whether putting that on the list too, because I had that and played that game a lot too. That was like one of the, not OGs, but I guess with Streets of Rage, it's one of those formative beat 'em up games. It's a lot of fun. Has a lot of nostalgia to it. Like, as you might know, I'm into action figures, and the company that makes the Mortal Kombat figures I pick up, they also have brought a line of Golden Axe figures, so there's definitely some nostalgia for Golden Axe going around.
That's cool.
I also played Altered Beast a lot, even though I never finished that game. That was another honorable mention. It has some of my favorite sound effects too. I love the sound in these old games. But you would transform, like you would each level you would have a different monster you would transform into, and you would have to acquire these orbs, kind of like Mario getting a mushroom. You get a little bit bigger, like more so like Axel turning into Max in Streets of Rage. It was like you would get a little bit more muscular and bigger, until you got the last orb. You would transform. The first level is like a werewolf, and there's a dragon, and then there's a bear, and you just like finish the rest of the level as your Altered Beast.
As the name implies.
Yeah. Welcome to your doom. The guy would say, there was like one antagonist, he would fight he would like have different forms of monsters he would turn into at the end of each level, and you'd fight him. He'd always start the fight with, welcome to your doom.
Welcome to your doom.
That's
welcome to You Are Doom.
Set us up the bomb. Yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
Nick, did you have any honorable mentions?
Also, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks.
So we would have to have an episode talking more about the more roaming action type games like that. Because otherwise, yeah, like all of those types of things, Shaolin Monks, the Warriors, all of that would end up getting put on the list.
I think Shaolin Monks, and maybe to an extent the Warriors, straddle that line that Fighting Force does, where it's 3D, but you're beating people up. Granted, you can do fatalities in Mortal Kombat, but you're just punching and kicking your way to the end of the game.
Dean, I thought your third pick would have been Sub-Zero Mythologies.
That was I didn't play that game as much, but that was under consideration. I did a lot of research on that, and that was definitely an enjoyable game for me. That's some hard as fuck parts, but
yeah,
that was a cool take on the whole franchise.
So I think I know I had 2 games in my mind that would have been honorable mentions, but while we were talking, I lost one of them, and it will haunt me until my dying day. The other one was the traditional X-Men arcade game.
I'm surprised that didn't actually just make your list.
It was going to, but I knew like later on, I guess they re-released the game briefly on 360 that you can buy it. And I remember we bought it and played it at my house. And it wasn't as good as I remembered because it ended up being like just keep spamming your special ability until you're pretty much dead. But for nostalgia purposes, it was terrific. I remember we had near our house, but there was a Woodlawn Duck Pin Bowling that we used to go to, but they had the arcade cabinet there. So I was always more excited to go and be able to play that game than actually go and do the bowling. Because they had, I think it was like the 6-person version. So
wow.
Everybody can pile onto it.
6 people? I thought there was only 4 characters.
I want to say there were 6.
Yeah, there's Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, and
Nightcrawler, Colossus.
Nightcrawler. See, that's okay.
Yeah, because I remember because Nightcrawler was the one that I always used to play. Because what were the hold, please? 6 X-Men: Cyclops, Colossus, Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, and Dazzler.
Oh, you know what? I was just watching one playthrough instance where there's only 4 people on the screen, so they just didn't choose those guys.
Well, yeah, because I think
You're
they
right.
had a 4-person version and the 6-person version for the cabinet.
They did have a 6. Wow, like what did that even look like?
Huge.
Everybody's
Like, I remember if I
other.
needed to let somebody know, like, do you have quarters? I had to send them a letter. So that one I remember, like, sticking around forever. Every time we went to a different arcade, every time we went somewhere, I would try to scout around and see if they had X-Men in the arcade game. But at the end of the day, I think it ended up losing out because since it was only available when I went to the arcade growing up, it never held on as much as some of these other ones, or clearly as much as my second honorable mention that is now lost to the ether. I'm going to remember like 5 days from now and just like a madman post an audio track to Twitter that's just me talking about whatever this was.
Was it the Simpsons game? Because that was one, like your X-Men experience, that was one I would like, I'll try to see if that's at an arcade or the bowling alley. That was like a gas station bowling alley cabinet.
It was not.
I feel I'm going to ostracize myself a bit. I didn't like the X-Men arcade game at all. Not growing up and not today. I remember we played it like the last time we visited Dave in Vermont. We went to one of the bars and it had it. And I didn't like playing it too much. Just, I don't know, not my thing. I grew up playing the Simpsons one. And I'm not that big of a Simpsons fan as it is, but that one I had a lot more. That one just really... If I had a choice between the two, I would always go with the Simpsons one.
Yeah,
I didn't play the X-Men arcade. maybe not ever, honestly.
I remember seeing it. I mean, like the Milford Rec.
Yeah, like when you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah.
And a lot of places did have it too, exactly like that. You know, you go into the bowling alley and there's going to have something there. I remember like the Burger King I used to go into always had Street Fighter. But if it wasn't Street Fighter, it was always going to be the Simpsons cabinet, at least for me anyway. And that's the one that stands out the most that I remember playing.
We were able to delay long enough that I remembered what the other pick was.
Good.
It falls more into the territory of, was it Fighting Force and those ones? It was the like Xbox arcade game Watchmen, The End Is Nigh. After
yeah, I never played that, but I remember.
Or it might have been a PlayStation Network game or something. Because I remember it being like cheap. It was like $15 or something like that.
Yeah, I remember playing.
But we got like a weekend of fun out of it.
That's Night Owl and Rorschach, right?
Yeah. And it's just literally walking around and just beating guys up as you go level to level. But I remember it being a blast, and it was like Scott Pilgrim. It was just a thing that I wasn't expecting that just popped up for a great price and gave us exactly what we needed it for, like a weekend or a couple weekends or whatever it was. So that one, if it's still released anywhere, like if they do a PSN network or the PlayStation Network on PS4 or something, or if you can still snag it, it's fun, especially if you're a Watchmen fan.
To your point earlier about X-Men, about spamming specials, that's why I almost put the Manhattan Project, the NES Turtles game, as one of my choices, but you can just spam that. It's one of those, you do each turtle has their special move, and you can spam it, but it takes health down. But it's so effective that you can have no health and just just keep spamming it and just win the game that way.
Well, especially if you were actually playing the arcade version, then you can just keep putting in quarters. So effectively, you're just bankrolling your special ability.
I mean, the arcade versions didn't have that. This was a NES exclusive, like, sequel to the arcade games.
Okay. Because I was going to say, like, the X-Men game had the same thing of, like, you can do the specials, but it takes up some of your health.
Yeah. But I think that's why I got blisters playing that game, because you had to hit A and B simultaneously, I think, and then just sliding between the two. Like, my thumb just got destroyed. But I fucking loved that game. The Turtles games peaked, unfortunately for me, in 2D and, you know, the older systems and arcades. I still haven't played a Turtles game. I feel like they could make a good 3D or third-person action game. They just haven't done it yet.
I know they
really wish they would do something.
I heard they remade Turtles in Time, but I don't.
It looks bad.
Yeah, or there was something else with it that just it took away from the original experience, and people.
Oh yeah, they did a 3D like remaster.
You can't even buy it anymore.
Bad.
Either, which is dumb.
Yeah. Oh, the old one?
No, the remake.
The remake.
They got rid of it off the store. If you bought it, you can download it again, but like I can just get the demo. But I can't get the full game anymore, and I still want to play it. there's some games like I don't want to always have to resort to pirating or using an emulator. Just give me an option to play the real thing. But there's so many like legal crap involved behind the licensing behind the game that some of the classics you just can't play anymore because, well, this company says you can't play it, so it's not available for download anymore.
Yeah, which I know not a beat 'em up game, but the same thing happened with for years I was playing Marvel Heroes on PC, and later they did it for Xbox and whatnot, where it was like a Marvel Diablo, essentially, of all these different characters. And then after a while, they ended up, I guess, the rights fell through, and it was, hey, we're going to shut down the server. Everything you bought, too bad. Sorry, it's gone now. So yeah, like that's the only thing that sucks is kind of the more modern stuff of games as a service, or like games that are online and constantly like a living thing. Because back in the day, like I can buy Separation Anxiety if they decided, oh, we lost the rights. Okay, great. You can't buy it anymore. But if you still have it installed on your computer and you have the disc, do whatever you want. Like we can't remove it from there. Like I remember at one point I was playing, I think it was Marvel Ultimate Alliance or Ultimate Alliance 2, that they lost the rights to some of the characters that they had added as DLC. So they just removed it. So it's like I paid money for, I think it was like Juggernaut or something like that. And then one day I log in and it's just like Juggernaut's gone. I'm like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. So, yeah, beat 'em up games.
Woo! Woo!
You looked like you wanted to say something, Dean.
Woo! No, I'm just wooing.
Oh, okay. Okay, gang, so that wraps up another episode of Rule of Thirds, and we'd like to thank you for coming along for the ride and discussing beat 'em up games. As always, you can reach us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, @ScreenRefresh, or shoot an email to screenrefresh@gmail.com to let us know what your top 3 would be, or if you have any topics you want to hear us discuss. As we said, if you want to play, Streets of Rage 4 or Castle Crashers, shoot me an email. If you're the first person to respond back to it, I'll shoot you a copy of the game. And you can join on with us for some 4-player beat 'em ups. So
minimum 8 hours with us. You can't just take the game and run.
Oh yeah, you have to complete the actual game in one sitting with us. It has to be on a stream. And if you leave, we'll see you in court. So so let us know. We'll get something going. So thanks again. This is Tim. For Nick and Dean, have a great week and catch us next week on Screen Refresh for the first Monday of the month.
I want to find some music that we can loop. Like when you start your outro, it'd be cool to have like just a music bed that comes up that it's like, this is the end of the show, you know? And then you can easily loop and then sting out. Or that, is it The Shining?